Hey guys, in this tutorial I'm going to show you how I elevated this faux geode decor piece from Dollar Tree and turned it into a decorative tray. If you're new to my channel, I hope you click that subscribe button before you leave, turn on that notification bell, and if you like this tutorial, I hope you click the like button as well. Now let's get into the DIY. For the decorative tray, I found this faux geode slice decor piece from Dollar Tree, and I knew I wanted to turn it into a decorative tray somehow and kind of elevate it to look more realistic. There's actually 4 different designs of color slices at Dollar Tree, but I thought I would have the best luck transforming this one to look more realistic than the others. And I just start off by removing the stand that's attached to the back. It was glued on there pretty good. I thought I could just pull it off by hand or with some pliers, but I actually needed to run an X-Acto knife around the edges to separate the glue bond, and then I was just able to pop it off with my hand. I used a sanding block to sand off the extra bits left over from where it was attached to the stand because the tray will need to sit flat when it's finished. I wanted to mimic what a real geode looks like as much as possible, so I used some Epsom salt from Dollar Tree because it looks like the little crystal flecks that you would see in nature. I just used some hot glue and worked around the same areas that were white on the piece of decor, working in small sections because hot glue dries pretty quickly. After each section of hot glue, I shake off the excess and then do another section. I do this all the way around the inner white part and outer edge, keeping the gold trim visible. To make the geode slice look shiny and lock in that Epsom salt, I used this resin kit. My husband had used it for a project and there was some left over, so I thought it would be perfect to use for this project. I'm not sure where he had purchased it. I think maybe from Michael's, but I'll leave a link for it down below if I can find it on Amazon. It was super easy to use. I just mixed equal parts of the resin and hardener in a disposable cup, mixed with a popsicle stick for 2 minutes according to the instructions, and then once that was done, I poured it into another cup after the 2 minutes and then stirred for an additional minute. Keep in mind, whatever amount you use and mix, you will need to use that right away. I used about 3/4 of a cup, I'm guessing, because that was what was left in the kit. I could have used less, but I wasn't sure how much I would need as I'm still a beginner at resin projects. I didn't notice any strong odors with this kit, so it was safe to do inside. I just had a window close to me open just in case there were any fumes. And as you can see, I was also wearing gloves to protect my hands while working with this medium. I set up a pour spot on my desk. I used an old piece of poster board and my little crafting stone and then placed a couple of mini cups to elevate the geode so that when I pour the resin, it will coat the sides of the tray. Then I just pour the resin onto the geode in the center and let it flow naturally over the whole piece. Then after about a minute or so, I go back and tilt the piece in different directions so there's no pooling or unevenness with the resin, and then I just let it sit on top of those cups. There were a couple of air bubbles, and this is common from what I understand so far about using resin. I didn't have a mini torch, so I just used my hair dryer at the lowest setting, and I used it high enough so it wouldn't move the resin too much, but the heat would pop the bubbles. For the first hour, I would say about every 15 minutes or so, I would take a popsicle stick and run it along under the edges where resin drips were occurring. Again, I just wanted this to be as flat as possible, and I knew the drip marks would eventually harden and it would make it wobbly if I didn't get rid of those. While the geode was set up for curing, I took the stand part that I removed and painted the wooden dowels gold. I painted them this way even though I will be removing them later. It was just easier to paint them like this. And I'm using the color Brushed Antique Gold by Folk Art. Any acrylic paint will do. I just use this color a lot in my projects because it's one of my favorites. After the wooden dowels were dry, I snipped them off the stand and then cut each one into 3 pieces, 2 of those pieces being the same size or roughly the same size. I used an X-Acto knife to create the marks and then my Dollar Tree saw to cut them. Then I used my sanding sponge to make the ends as flat as possible. They weren't perfect, and you're going to see the handles are not perfect later on, but crafting is never perfect, at least for me it's not. I prefer imperfections in my crafts because it gives them their own uniqueness. I let the geode slice cure overnight. On the package it said 72 hours for a hard cure, but it was hard as a rock, no pun intended, by the next afternoon. Curing time depends, I think, on the temperature and humidity of the area that you're working in. To assemble the decorative handles, I took 2 of the small pieces and hot glued them down to the tray and then hot glued the longer piece of the wooden dowel to the tops of those. After the decorative handles were attached, I touched them up with that same gold paint, going over all the spots where you could see hot glue as well. Something I was thinking about after I attached the handles was that I could have glued them onto the geode slab first before pouring the resin over it. I think that would have looked a little bit nicer and more finished, but hindsight is 20/20. I love how this project turned out. Very rarely does a crafting project turn out how I envision it in my head, but this one was pretty close to what I had imagined. I have it displayed in my bedroom on my dresser, and I styled it with a Dollar Tree candle and one of my real rocks. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to subscribe before you leave for more DIY inspiration. Take care.